No television show in American history has ever created as profound a cultural impact as Soul Train. Then, in 2006, the show abruptly vanished without a farewell. All details surrounding its conclusion were kept under wraps except for one, a recorded episode that never aired. What unfolded behind those unreleased scenes? Let us go back to the beginning to explore today's story in depth. Hey there, and welcome aboard. You're right on time for another super slick ride on the Soul Train. John Cornelius was born in 1936 in the south side of Chicago, growing up in an America deeply divided by racial segregation. Before entering the world of television, he held several working-class jobs, including traffic officer and salesman. In 1966, he enrolled in a short-term broadcasting course and was soon hired as a reporter at WCIU-TV, a local Chicago station. And if that's your feeling, we'd like to hear about that. Also, we're going to take our first call and find out just what it was there that he conceived and launched a new project called Soul Train, a music program dedicated to the black community. Soul Train first aired on August 17, 1970 in Chicago. It began with live performances featuring local dancers and guest musicians and quickly made waves. Just over a year later, on October 2, 1971, the show was broadcast nationwide with sponsorship from major companies such as Sears and Johnson Products Company. With its energetic music, bold fashion, and signature dance moves, Soul Train became a television phenomenon. During its golden years, the show featured a lineup of legendary artists: James Brown, Arthur Franklin, Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5 and later LL Cool J, and Mary J. Blige all performed on the Soul Train stage. It wasn't only a platform for singers. It launched the careers of dancers like Rosie Perez, Jody Watley, Clinton Gent and Jeffrey Daniel, who would later join the group Shalamar and teach Michael Jackson the moonwalk technique. One of the program's most iconic segments was the Soul Train line, a dance showcase where two rows of people faced each other, taking turns stepping into the center aisle to perform their own signature moves. It was more than just entertainment. It was a space for self-expression, fashion culture, and personal identity. For viewers, it became a weekly cultural ritual. For participants, it was a chance that could change their lives. Don Cornelius was more than just a host. He served as executive producer, editor, and the creative force behind the show's entire identity. His demeanor, calm, refined, and serious, gave Soul Train a unique character, unlike any other music program of the time. Cornelius delivered not only a stage, but a vision. Television should not be a privilege of any one group, but a space where all cultures are represented truthfully and positively. Over 3 decades, the show aired more than 1,000 episodes, becoming the longest-running music television program of its time. At its peak in the late 1970s and early 1980s, Soul Train averaged weekly ratings of 4.5 to 5.0. Fashion and cosmetics brands targeting the black community saw it as the perfect promotional platform, further cementing the show's central role in mainstream cultural life. Beyond television, the Soul Train brand expanded into other ventures: music awards, fashion events, and merchandise. Don Cornelius consistently ranked among the most influential figures in black entertainment. In 1971, Life magazine named him one of the 100 most important Americans. But when a show becomes a cultural icon, it also faces shadows behind the spotlight. And in the case of Soul Train, the shifting tides of the era were something even its founder had to confront. In the next chapter, Soul Train would face a whirlwind that signaled the arrival of a looming crisis, the rift behind the scenes. Don Cornelius had long been known as a strict operator. He not only controlled the content aired, but also intervened in the appearance, costumes, and even choreography of the dancers featured on the show. Rosie Perez, who danced on the program for several seasons, recalled that Cornelius did not tolerate suggestive moves or anything that strayed from the aesthetic framework he approved. She was once asked to change her performance style for allegedly distorting the show's artistic direction. In addition, many dancers who had performed on Soul Train revealed that they never received any compensation. Appearing on national television was seen as a life-changing opportunity, rather than a formal job with contractual pay. Some later expressed feeling exploited, as the show tapped into their creativity and youth without offering equivalent benefits. The biggest conflict stemmed from a domain that seemed unavoidable: music. As hip-hop began to rise as a dominant trend in the late 1980s, Cornelius displayed a notably conservative stance. He believed the genre portrayed too many negative aspects of the black community, from language to violent imagery. In a 1992 interview, he stated bluntly, "I don't want my show to be overtaken by sounds that I don't believe represent anything positive." This opinion immediately sparked divided reactions. Many artists and music producers argued that Cornelius had fallen behind the times. New shows like Yo! MTV Raps and Rap City on BET quickly filled the gap left by Soul Train. Leading rap artists such as Tupac Shakur, Nas and Snoop Dogg rarely appeared on the show, a reality that drove younger audiences to tune in elsewhere. This divergence in content direction led to a clear decline in viewership. While the show still averaged ratings above 4.0 in the early 1980s, by the early 2000s, that number had fallen below 2.0. Local stations began rescheduling or replacing it with fresher, more appealing programs. In 1993, Don Cornelius officially stepped down as host, ending 23 years of consistent on-camera presence. The role was then passed on to new faces like Maestro Clark, Shamar Moore and Dorian Gregory. Although each brought their own energy, none could replicate the calm presence and symbolic authority that Cornelius had embodied. Attempts to revitalize the show by changing hosts, redesigning the stage, and inviting more hip-hop artists were largely seen as temporary fixes. The outdated content foundation combined with patchy reforms made it difficult for Soul Train to maintain its competitive appeal. Between 2003 and 2006, the number of episodes produced per season was cut back, and the production team underwent significant changes. The show's internal structure was no longer stable. Some longtime editors resigned. Technical staff moved on to other projects. Mounting production costs and outdated content raised questions among investors about the show's viability. As for Cornelius, he gradually disappeared from public events, nearly ceasing all public commentary. What was once a source of pride now seemed confined to memory. Soul Train continued to air weekly, but it was no longer a cultural cornerstone. Younger artists sought out other stages. New dancers didn't stay long. The program entered a state of stagnation. Then in 2006, during a period when the show had clearly lost its direction, an unusual taping session took place. No one ever disclosed what happened backstage, but from that point forward, Soul Train never returned. The episode banned forever. In March 2006, Soul Train entered what was supposed to be a routine taping session in Los Angeles. On paper, it was just another episode in the show's final season. But according to numerous accounts from those present that day, the atmosphere on set was unstable from the start. The production crew had been reshuffled at the last minute. The guest list was disorganized, and there were signs of a lack of direction from senior executives. Some sources claimed that Don Cornelius was backstage, although he no longer held an active production role. Longtime staff members said he openly showed disappointment with the program's current trajectory. The episode was scheduled to feature a rising hip-hop artist. However, the event began nearly an hour late due to disputes between the artist's representatives and the logistics team. A former editorial staff member revealed that the performance crossed visual boundaries traditionally upheld by Soul Train. It included provocative visual elements, choreography, and costumes that were deemed incompatible with the show's original vision. The controversy escalated when Cornelius reportedly called for a halt to the entire editing process and convened an emergency meeting with the program's distribution partners. One of the major distributors, Tribune Entertainment, withdrew shortly afterward. This withdrawal left Soul Train without a sufficient network to continue national television broadcasts. According to internal data, within 3 weeks of the taping, more than 40% of local affiliates had stopped airing the show. No formal announcement was made, but industry insiders understood this was effectively the final episode. The official website stopped updating. Television networks replaced the show's time slot with other programs, and the production schedule was indefinitely cancelled. Not long after, several media reports began referencing the buried episode as the primary reason behind the show's end. Although it never officially aired, footage from that day's taping remained in the possession of several former staffers. Fan pages on social media discussed the incident and referred to it as a cursed performance. The controversial episode did more than disrupt a single taping. It marked the silent end of one of the most iconic television programs in American history. But every ending leaves a trace, and for Soul Train, the consequences of that fateful moment went beyond going off the air. It became a fracture in the very legacy Don Cornelius had worked so hard to build. Tragedy strikes the man behind it all. Right after Soul Train went off the air, the media fell silent. John Cornelius, the man synonymous with the brand since day one, declined all interview requests following the incident. In a brief appearance on a local radio station in 2007, he simply said, "I think it went far enough." From that point on, he almost completely withdrew from public life. Many believed he felt betrayed by the very system he once controlled, when new hands steered the show in a direction he no longer recognized. While the public remained confused, a few former dancers and guest performers began sharing personal reflections. Rosie Perez called the show's sudden end an unnamed sadness. Dorian Gregory, the host during its final stretch, admitted that no one on the team had received clear communication. Many only realized the show was over when the internal taping schedule disappeared from the system. Independent media began digging deeper, publishing a series of analyses on the program's collapse. A 2008 article in Vibe magazine stated, "Soul Train wasn't cancelled because of ratings. It was cancelled because trust within fell apart." The Soul Train Awards, which had run annually since 1987, continued, but were separated from the original program's brand, though the awards were created by Don Cornelius. Control was fully handed over to BET in 2009. Subsequent ceremonies adopted a more modern tone and rarely referenced the show's golden years.